Hello, everyone. This is Phil, and I'm here with Albert on
Hello.
another episode. What's up?
Oh, no, thanks.
Oh,
Just
you
saying
said
hi.
hello. Oh, okay. No, I thought you were saying hold on for a second. It all started with an H. So today we're going to review the MsCube MS3-v1. I'm so happy you didn't mess that up. It's one heck of a name. But
Yep.
yes, we're going to review this cube and maybe advance some thoughts that you haven't really considered. So hopefully it'll be
hmm
fun.
Yeah, so this will be kind of like a pseudo review. So I'll have some B-roll footage during this video just to go over some of the objective things about the cube, and you'll see some solves as well. But otherwise, we're going to talk a little bit more broadly about not just this cube, but sort of what this cube implies and sort of what it means for future things that both MsCube does as a company as well as potentially other companies.
Do you want to first do the reviewy part of the video and actually say like what is this thing? Like what is this cube?
Oh, sure. So it's a 56 millimeter 3x3. There's two versions. There's the standard edition and the enhanced version. The only difference is that the enhanced version has extra magnets on the center pieces and the edge pieces. So it has center edge magnetization on top of edge corner magnets. They're both high 70s, right?
Yeah, they're like mid high 70s. So like very normal speed cube weights.
Yep. Yeah. So I personally like the feel or the weight of it. I don't think it's too heavy. In fact, I think some cubes are too light, so this is really comfortable. The plastic on the cube is glossy, so I think a lot of trendy cubes these days have frosted plastic or sort of a matte finish. It's kind of nice to see that this cube has glossy plastic, but it does have primary internal, so I think it looks really nice. I think it's aesthetically a very nice cube.
And yeah, it has, as you mentioned, it has two versions. One is $29.99 and the other is $34.99. So in terms of pricing, it is on the low end of what people consider a flagship. You know, WRM, Valkyrie, Gan, any sort of Gan cube. So it's on the lower end of that, but it's not cheap either. You know, for a speed cube, there are plenty of speed cubes that are much cheaper.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's also important to note that this cube doesn't have the same number of adjustment features that like a Gan 11 Pro has. So the magnets, for example, are not adjustable. They're fit into the cube and glued in, and you can't change them. It does have spring compression and centerpiece travel distance that you can adjust, which we'll talk a lot about in this video. But aside from that, that's kind of the only adjustment that it has. So you can adjust the magnets. I don't know what else you would really adjust in a cube these days. Can't adjust the size. but yeah, so those may or may not be pros. Personally, I think that that's fine, and I think the magnet strength in the cube is perfectly acceptable. But if you're someone who really likes to fine tune the magnets, then maybe that would be a con for you. But for me, I think it's totally fine.
Yeah, I think the magnets are completely fine. Like I think anybody who would complain about the magnets is, yeah, going to be either really picky or just unreasonable. So, yeah, I think the magnets should suit a very large portion of the serious speed cubing segment.
Yeah, and actually, I would say between the standard edition and the enhanced version, you can feel the difference in magnets too. So if you like the strong magnetic feeling, then the enhanced version sort of has you covered. It's a very crunchy, stable cube. I think the standard edition is a little bit more flexible, and for me, it's a little bit faster because I'm just sort of used to that style of turning now. But yeah, I think you can sort of pick your poison. They're both good for different types of turn styles.
So we went over a lot of the features. I think the tension system is pretty unspectacular. It is a thing that you twist and it gives you tension. It's better than, I guess it's more granular than some other like preset tension systems. So that's better. Not as good as a screw. We're old people, by the way, so we like the traditional old-fashioned screw. We're also not afraid to tension by hand. So I think, for a person who doesn't want to spend as much time, or a person who's, beginning cubing, I can understand why they would not want the old-fashioned screw. But yeah, this cube goes to great lengths to avoid many things, and a screw is one of them. And then the elasticity system is really wonky. We both had to pull out our calipers. So tell me about your experience.
I spent literally 2 hours because I couldn't figure out what the difference was between setting A and setting B. So in this cube, the core has two settings. You can either turn it clockwise or counterclockwise, and presumably that's supposed to change something about the cube. In the manual, it says it tightens and loosens it, but it's not clear if it tightens or loosens the spring or the centerpiece travel distance. And initially, I thought that it was actually twisting the spring, and I thought this was like an ingenious idea because the spring coil is so wide that if you twisted the coil, it would actually have less stress on the actual spring. So I was like, oh, this is super smart. But then I realized that the spring freely rotates anyway, so it didn't make sense. And then I read the manual again, and it turns out that the dial on the top is what does the spring compression, which means that the A and B in the core is actually for the centerpiece travel distance. And then I was confused for another 15, 20 minutes because it looked like both A and B settings were identical. And so I was like, okay, well, what is the centerpiece travel distance difference?
Yeah.
So I took out the calipers, and it was like a 400 micron difference, which is not insignificant. Or actually, sorry, I said it wrong again. It's not the spring, or it's not the centerpiece travel distance. It's the spring compression. The A and B is a spring compression.
It's spring compression.
It's spring compression, right. So it's a 400 micron compression of the spring, which is actually significant. I worked out the math. It is actually a fair amount of force difference, but it's not super obvious. And I think the way that it's explained in the manual is really, really confusing. So much so that even after using this cube for so long and making this video, I still just said it incorrectly the first time.
Yeah, it's weird. I spent 20 minutes trying to figure it out, and then I brought it to Ro and Maddie, and then one of them, I think, just used the naked eye and said, if you turn the little like thing to the right, it actually gives you more space, so it compresses the spring less. And I was like, A, how the heck did you see that? And B, what a dumb system. Okay,
yeah,
look.
well, there's a lot to talk about here. So first of all, they give you 3 sets of springs. Yeah. And I think they're all different stiffnesses. And then each spring you can compress to either A or B. So you get effectively 6 spring settings, but it's a lot of hardware to do that. And on top of that, the centerpiece travel distance with the dial on top is the ratchet system, which is the opposite of what every other company does, because usually that dial is for spring compression. So
they Tenyon has a ratchet tension thing, I think.
Oh, that's right. But they also have a screw. Okay, so that system is confusing in its own way.
Okay, all right, fair.
But for like MPO cubes and Gan cubes, right? It's like, usually the ratchet is for the spring compression. So that was really confusing. One thing I will say about the centerpiece travel distance is that 5 is better than 4. But also on top of that, it's nice that it's all integrated into one system, so you don't need separate nuts like you do on the GES system in order to do the different centerpiece travel distances. So I do actually kind of like that.
Okay, I'm going to challenge you on this. So, question. Have you managed to adjust the elasticity without disassembling the cube?
Yes.
Without disassembling the cube, you can just turn the thing.
Just turn 180. Yeah.
180. I for some reason I can't do that reliably. Like I need to be able to see that thing hit the hook and go up in order to do that. So adjusting for me requires taking it apart to some extent. So I don't know if I'm just dumb and counter coordinated, but yeah, it was really weird. I wasn't able to just do the 180 inside the cube. So I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, like I'd rather use GES nuts than have to disassemble the cube every time I want to change the elasticity.
It is nice to have that indicator on the GES nuts tell you like what number you're on instead of just doing it by feel.
Yeah, because you can't tell what setting you're on without checking, right?
Yeah, actually there were a couple of times when I was messing with the tensions, I forgot if I had turned it one direction or the other, so I did actually have to double check multiple times. For me, the difficult thing was not necessarily turning it 180, but actually keeping the dial at the same ratchet. So oftentimes I would have to do the spring compression first and then do the centerpiece travel distance again afterward in order to set everything correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. This just begs the question, why was it designed this way? And the cynic in me is like, okay, so let's bring in Gan now, right? So this company allegedly is founded by an individual who used to work at Gan as an engineer. and he departed Gan and he made his own company in Cube, and this is it. So the cynic in me is like, okay, like he wanted all these features, but he couldn't copy Gan exactly for either strategic, ethical, or legal reasons. And so he was like, okay, how do I make a thing that's the same thing but not the same thing? It feels kind of like not the best set of decisions, or not the best combination of decisions to express the features. That's how I feel. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, so this is from like a very naive perspective because I don't know the backstory. So this is I want to preface this by saying that, you know, this is not fact. This is just my sort of impression of all of this, is that if I didn't know anything about this, it would feel like someone was trying to make a GAN cube without making something that would be legally like a legal liability, basically. Right? It's like do everything that GAN has done that is not covered by patents or copyrights, and then the things that are, just make it different enough to like skate by. To me, that's what this cube looks like. Yeah.
I mean, I feel the same. And the fact that he used to work at GAN, I'm sure it makes him extremely visible to GAN management. And, you know, it's not hard for them to tell what this guy's doing. So I'm sure, you know, it's in his best interest to not rock the boat. Let's start naming things that are similar between this cube and a GAN cube. You want to take turns?
Okay. I mean, the entire mechanism, aside from the core, it's literally the same dimensions. The pieces are almost interchangeable. You can take a GAN edge piece and put it inside the MsCube, or maybe vice versa. In one direction it works because there's no like double track in one of the cubes. But the inner radii of the cubes are identical. From the outside, they look almost the same as well. Yeah, I mean, they're almost clones mechanistically.
Yeah, let's not forget about the presentation of the cube, right? Standard, enhanced. Oh, look, spiderweb design. That's totally functionally, it's the same as the honeycomb, right? You can have any sort of pattern, be it triangles or pentagons or whatever, and it's going to function similarly.
It has basically the same adjustment system if you think about it. It's just it's now under the centerpiece, right?
Yes.
So the GES system is inside the centerpiece, and now what MsCube has done is they've taken basically the same thing. They've flipped spring compression and centerpiece travel distance, and they've stuck it underneath the centerpiece. But it's essentially the same idea.
It's pretty much a GAN, but not really.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, it's GAN, but not really.
What do you think of it as a speed cube for, like, you know, the purchasing market? Like, if a person wants to buy speed cube, what's your take on that?
Yeah. So as a consumer, I think these are actually quite good cubes. I get really good times on both of them, and performance-wise, they're really good. They corner cut, you know, well over 45 degrees. Reverse corner cutting is good. Basically standard stuff. The feel of it is kind of crunchy, and it's a little bit loud, but not in a bad way. I think it's actually very pleasing. Personally, and I know you feel differently about this, Phil, but I actually like the standard edition more just because it feels a little bit looser to me. But I know that some people would actually like the enhanced version. So if you like cubes that are more stable, or if you really like the Bulk Elite, I think it's very similar to that. The enhanced version is. I think the standard version is like a more stable 356M kind of cube, which is something that I prefer.
Sure. So my personal opinion is the standard version is entirely pointless, but that's a very extreme opinion. And I'm sure there are people out there that like it better. Yeah, for me, it's partly extreme opinion, partly logistical, but yeah, it's for me, like, I don't get my best times on it, but I also don't get bad times. My times are pretty good. So it wouldn't be my main, but you know, there are people who would probably really like this cube. So like collectors and people curious about like the new company, the new feel, they're going to get a new feel, and they're going to get a new company and new set of features. And so if you're looking for some sort of new expression of of ideas, you're going to get it. And I don't see this cube being endorsed by pros or used by pros.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as good.
Yeah, it's really not. But you know, it is up there. It is a fairly good cube. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, it's a good first try," right? But I guess the question is it really a first try?
Well, I don't know what this person did before. I know he worked at GAN, but like I don't know like what his exact role was.
He was apparently, like, he contributed a lot to making the XS and the 11. That's what I've been hearing. So like he's not some intern, you know, like he actually worked on the cubes. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, but it really doesn't matter. A cube is a cube, and it has features and benefits, right?
Yeah, there is one thing about the feel of the cube that I can't. It's hard to describe. It's not that it feels cheap, but it feels more like a toy than other Rubik's cubes. So like the Gan 11 Pro feels very like polished in a sense. Like it just feels like a really well built product. The MS Cube, for some reason, like when you turn it, it's something about like either the feel or the sound of it that's just like it's a little bit off to me. And one thing I've noticed is when I disassemble the cube, it seemed like a lot of the parts didn't fit perfectly flush with one another. And you know, for actual performance, it doesn't matter, but it's just these like little things that I think set it apart from more expensive cubes. And maybe that contributes to how it feels and how it sounds as well.
What are some of the more interesting, nuanced implications of this product?
Yeah, there's a few things. So it comes down to the core, right? Because that's really like the special thing about this cube that's different than other stuff. So it feels like MsCube is following this trend of over-engineering things that have already been well engineered. So I always talk about this like GES system versus a screw, and some people push me back on that, and that's fine. But the fact of the matter is that a screw is like one of the 7 simple machines that were created, right? This includes like pulleys and levers. And the reason these machines are so robust is because they work. Like they work, they give you good mechanical advantage. They're reliable and they're easy to mass produce and manufacture. And to reinvent the screw first by Gan, to me was already a step in sort of the wrong direction in terms of like where cubing should go. But I think MsCube has now taken a step further because now they're reinventing what Gan cubes have. And so that was 2 steps removed from something that should have worked for hundreds of years, right? So it's, to me, this is like bewildering that companies are trying to reinvent what a screw does in like these different iterations that may or may not be better than a screw.
Don't forget, they made a proprietary tool.
Yeah, they made exactly.
to use on their own.
Yeah, so the implications, I don't know. So to me, I think this shows that the MsCube designer clearly is very good at designing things, right? Like from the hard skills perspective of like, okay, can they use a CAD software to design something different than other people? The answer is yes. And you know, they can do it quite well. Practically speaking and pragmatically, is this the best use of their skills? I don't think so. I think they could maybe change the cube in a different way that's actually more useful than these sort of contrived tensioning systems. But that's just me. That's my opinion. I don't think everyone would agree with that, but that's how I feel about it from you know, an engineer's perspective.
Right. And now from a marketer's perspective, we're going to talk about how do you even enter the market these days in speed cubing? Like what is the best way to actually create a thing and put it so that other people are like, oh, I want to try this thing, right? Yeah. So I think this company either consciously or subconsciously made a combination of choices that caused it to be talked about, right, in the industry. So he's a former Gan engineer, so that must mean something about the quality of the product. Oh, look, it looks like a Gan cube, but not really. I wonder how similar it is to a Gan cube. Oh, look at all these fancy features. Seems like a smart dude. Like, I think very few people, like, you know, not the experienced marketer or the engineer, like, being cynical about the features. I think most people are like, oh yeah, that's creative, that's cool, you know. Well,
and then you add on the price, right? It's a lot cheaper than Gan flashes, and so now it all of a sudden looks very, very attractive. It's like, okay, well, from the outside, it basically looks like a Gan cube. The internals look super different, and they look very unique and cool, and it's cheaper. So why not? This seems awesome.
So I guess one question, this is complete speculation. Do you think he intentionally did this combination of things or unintentionally did this combination of things?
Definitely intentionally, right? Because it was the fastest way to get a cube to market. It wouldn't make sense to design the pieces, for example, like the edge pieces and the corner pieces from scratch. Like that just wouldn't make sense, right? So it made more sense to say, okay, I have either the pre-existing CAD files or knowledge of how those files were created. I'm just going to use them in the same cube because those are not patented by any company. And so that's, you know, a free base model. And then the only thing that needs to be changed is how the cube is tensioned, right? And then it's like, okay, we'll look at people's patents, see what's available and what's not available, and just go from there. Like, to me, that seems like the most straightforward path to getting a product to market.
Yep. Interesting. Yeah. So I guess the guy probably anticipated people saying, "Oh, look, former GAN engineer," you know. It makes me wonder, like, is this guy going to eventually pivot from that, or will he live the rest of his working life in this industry being the ex-GAN guy? You know?
Yeah.
Wonder how it feels.
Yeah, obviously this is a question for him, but to me, again, this is speculation. I think the fact that he is not at GAN anymore might mean that maybe he has ideas that were not supported by the company before, and so he wants to expand on those ideas himself. And I think for any company, it makes sense to make a 3x3 first. So really, I think it'll be very telling what the next product is. If it's another 3x3, then maybe he will always be, in GAN's shadow. But if it's a non 3x3 or something very, very different than what's currently on market, then I think it's actually very exciting, because now it means that, okay, well, he has the skills to make cool stuff, and he's going to make cool stuff that no one else is thinking about.
Yeah, I sincerely hope that he can develop his own sense of identity, so that one day we can be like, oh, this is the MS guy, and not, oh, this is the guy who formerly worked at GAN.
Yep.
So I hope he can develop that identity. I had a debate with a person on YouTube. I don't know if he's going to watch this or not, but the question was, does GAN care about this? And my opinion is, I don't think GAN would like this.
Yeah, well, I think the short answer is that, of course, GAN cares about this, right? Because it's a potentially like new competitor. So
his argument was, this cube is kitschy and not polished, and people will come to terms with that understanding of the cube, and it'll just make GAN cubes look good and difficult to imitate, which will bolster GAN's image/reputation. That's his argument.
Okay, I mean, maybe this is a lot of like theory crafting and hypotheticals, right?
It is. Yes.
It depends a lot on what the goal of MsCube is, and what the goal of GAN is, right? And I don't have information about either of those, really. I mean, the goal is to make money, obviously, but aside from that, I don't really have information about either company, so it's really hard to say.
Yeah, I guess the reason I so strongly disagreed with him is I'm going to speculate and guess that this person has never employed other people before. But from the perspective of an employer, I think it would be pretty crappy to have like a person who was doing stuff and he suddenly went rogue and he started doing other stuff that was substantially similar to the stuff that he was doing. It's not in anyone's interest to fight anyone. So I don't think GAN's going to sue them. I think that's really aggressive and is going to look really bad. And as an employer, I'm not looking to do that either. But, at the same time, the employer might feel apprehensive and scared and uncomfortable because this person has essentially made the statement, yeah, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna become your competitor, And so on one hand, if GAN doesn't do anything about it, it'll signal to other people out there in the world, or maybe other employees at GAN, that they can leave and start their own competitor with relative impunity. And that's what the employer thinks about. Sometimes I don't know what kind of agreements they have, or who owns what designs. I really have no idea. But from the employer's perspective, even if the cube is like arguably a little kitschy and not as polished, it doesn't set a great precedent. Yeah, of course, I don't know what this guy's relationship is with GAN. Maybe they had a mutually satisfactory, separation. Who knows?
Yeah.
There's a lot to think about with this company, but at the end of the day, cube is cube, right?
Yeah, that's a good cube.
Yeah, all this like theoretical stuff, I don't think the market generally cares about it so much. They just want a cube that works. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And for that, this is another good option. It's a different feel. It's actually a very unique feeling cube.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I do think it's worth getting if you want something a little bit different.
Yeah. Or if you just like speed cubes and you want to feel something new and see something new, this is it. You know, we kind of like, I feel like we've kind of gotten into the like certain sort of paths in certain designers. So like with MoU, you kind of know what to expect with the next cube. It has certain MoU-like features, and same with Gan. So to have this new trajectory of design is exciting, because right now the trajectory has one unit. So, you know, who knows where this company will go.
So the centerpieces on the standard edition are the exact same as the enhanced version. And so the enhanced version has magnets that are placed into the foot of the edge piece. But on the standard version, it looks like that hole is where the injection molding sprue mark is. So I'm wondering if what they did is they actually use the same mold, and then to place the magnets in the enhanced version, they just use like a heat gun to melt the magnet into the plastic. Because that would actually make production very cheap. So it's one mold. And so then the decision to release the enhanced and the standard is basically, okay, do we put in the extra work to put in the magnets, or do we just sell the cube straight from the actual mold? And so it's like an easy way to make two different products, right?
Right, that makes sense. I don't know too much about like the heat stuff, but that makes sense. We used to use a similar tool to punch holes in Megaminx. So
we use like a heat rod or like a soldering iron or something.
Yeah. Heat rod. Yep. Yeah, we had it was a Chris design. He designed a basic clamp-like tool that would lower a heat rod an exact distance so that it would always penetrate the piece consistently. It was really cool, but it also overheated. And so like it was actually a skill. Like the person would get a sense of how hot it was, and then they would have to let it cool down as they did it. It was actually like some like sixth sense. It was really cool. Like cool. When Bro was doing it, he was like, "Oh no, it's getting too hot. I have to slow down my pace." It was pretty rad. But yeah, I'm on a commercial scale. I'm sure it's a big operation. Yeah. Fun product. I don't think anyone else has really talked about this publicly, so it was fun to do it.
Yeah, this is great. We should do more reviews like this.
Yes. We should. Well, anyways, let us know in the comments what you thought of this. A lot of this is speculation, so please don't interpret it as, me, like saying, "Oh, this guy's mad" or "this other guy's mad," and also the whole like discussion about employers and stuff. That's just HR psychology. As an employer, I'm not interested in fighting people. We've fought enough people to know that fighting is bad. So it just hopefully everyone can chill out and enjoy the cubes. Cool.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, leave them below. I'll try to answer them. But yeah, thanks for watching.
All right. Toodles.
Yeah, until next time. Toodles.
I stole your salutation.
That's all right.
All the pieces feel the same, don't they?